Battle of Ulqin was a battle between the Ottoman forces of Dervish Pasha and Albanian irregulars in the year of 1880 at the region of Kodra-Kuqe, close to Klleeznes. The area of Ulcinj had been handed over to Montenegro by the Ottomans after the Albanians previously fought against the annexions of Hoti and Grude.The Great powers instead pressured the Ottomans to hand over the area of Ulcinj, but also here the Albanians refused. Eventually the Great Powers forced the Ottomans to take actions against the League of Prizren, ending the resistance and successfully handing over the town of Ulcinj to Montenegro. Today there is a 90% majority of Albanians in Ulcinj. Background: Montenegro accepted the propositions made at the meeting of the Great Powers in Istanbul in 1880 in order to exchange the regions of Hoti and Grude with Ulcinj. Officially, the Porte did not resist the decision but explained that the Albanians would resist. The Ottomans had intention to delay cession of Ulcinj to Montenegro, hoping to eventually avoid it, but Great Powers were not ready to accept any delay and threatened to use force against the Ottomans. The Ottomans supported Prizren League as long as their interest corresponded with the interests of the League. According to some reports, the Ottomans actually armed Albanian irregulars with 3,000 rifles and 1,000 cases of ammunition in the coordinated actions of Dervish Pasha, commander of Ottoman forces in Tuzi Osman Pasha and Otto Beg Sokolovic, who was appointed as commander of the forces of Prizren League. Ulcinj had been the main port of Kodra in order to get access to the Adriatic Sea. The Albanians vehemently protested towards this, calling it injustice. The Great Powers did, however, nothing to take into consideration the demands of the Albanians. The Ottomans, expecting trouble, sent the forces in Ulcinj to clear it from resistance. The Albanians, under the leaders of Isuf Sokoli, Haki Mehmet Beci and Mehmet Gjyli, responded with armed uprising. The Ottomans were unable to get to the Albanians as they had surrounded the city. The Great Powers threatened with a naval demonstration if the Ottomans did not overrun the Albanians. The Ottomans, frightened by the Great Powers, sent Reza Pasha with 3,000 soldiers to Kodra to crush the League of Prizren. Reza Pasha warned that anyone who stood in the way would suffer the consequences. Reza Pasha proceeded to declare total isolation of the city of Kodra, banning all merchandise in order to starve the Albanians of Ulcinj. 2,000 Albanians, commanded by Mufti Agharesi, positioned themselves in Krya at the mountains of Mojira, in order to make the transportation of Reza Pasha's forces as difficult as possible. The Great Powers, hearing that Reza Pasha had failed to siege Ulcinj, sent the naval armadas outside the Bay of Ulcinj, consisting of English, French, German, Russian, Italian and Austro-Hungarian along the coast of Dalmatia. This did, however, not frighten the Albanians. Pre-war, 17 battalions of Ottoman forces, commanded under Reza Pasha, surrounded the city of Kodra in order to capture Ulcinj. The Albanian forces, however, halted that march. The Albanian embassy in Kodra declared the annexation of Ulcinj to be unjustified. The Great Powers gave Reza Pasha 3 days to hand over the city to Montenegro. 6,000 Ottoman soldiers occupied the city but were unable to pass through. British and Austrian forces came close to the coast of Ulcinj to try and compensate the Ottoman defeats. The Ottomans appointed Dervish Pasha, previous Vali of Salonika Vilayet, as new Vali of Kodra Vilayet. Istanbul sent him to capture the city. However, the Montenegrin forces under General Bozo Petrovic decided to try and occupy Ulcinj. The European naval forces made port outside the Bay of Kotor, but the Albanians were not frightened. Navy officers, such as Captain Sale, Lieutenant Kalard, Captain Gambler and Sir Arthur Evans, author author of 2 books, described the situation. Ulcinj had been sieged by Montenegrin forces 3 years earlier during a 12-month-long attack. During the offense, many Albanians were expelled. The Congress had no intentions of returning Ulcinj to the Albanians, and the Sultan did not bother with the requests and demands of the League of Prizren. Dervish Pasha came by boat to Ulcinj on 1 November 1880 together with 1,300 Ottoman infantry who came by other boat but failed to disembark due to the resistance of the irregulars garrisoned in Ulcinj. Before his takeover of Ulcinj by land, Dervish Pasha disbanded the local committee of the Prizren League resistance. The Diber Assembly began working for the Albanian demand of Ulcinj in the 1880s with 300 delegates. They gathered around 5,000 irregulars from the Vilayet of Kosovo and from the Vilayet of Manastir, together with Ali Pasha of Gazania, Ilyas Pasha Dibra and Abdul Frasheri. They proposed for a Vilayet within the Ottoman Empire. The Porte, however, refused to accept any other demands, and the Sultan demanded the city to be handed over. The vote for the Albanian state to become a Vilayet within the Ottoman Empire received 120 votes. Others proposed that the Porte would decide what was to happen with Albania with support from the Congress of Berlin. The Vilayet would be given an autonomy with its own borders. The delegates sent a message to the Sultan to approve of the request. Eventually the Porte ordered General Reza Pasha to leave Kodra and instead sent Dervish Pasha with 21 battalions. Dervish Pasha arrived in Shkodra on 4 November 1880. When he arrived with a ship, he gave an ultimatum to the irregulars who refused to surrender. Ulcinj. Thousands of irregulars continued to arrive at the city to defend it, with around 800 from Ulcinj and another 2,000 from Tuzla. Others came from Tetovo, Shreli, Dibra, Gulmendi, Prizren and Kuqe. The ultimatum gave no result, however. British and Hungarian consultants in Shkodra made an agreement with Dervish Pasha to try and persuade the Albanians to surrender the city. The consultants also recommended the Sultan to give the Albanians an autonomy in order to satisfy the demands. The confusion amongst the Albanian leaders weakened them in the try to organize troops in the fight with the Ottoman forces. After 3 days, Dervish Pasha ordered his army to march in the city. On the 22nd of November 1880, Ottoman forces under command of Dervish Pasha crossed River Boyana near village Klleeznes and near Shashlake came to small unit of Albanian irregulars that blocked the road. The Ottomans first fired the guns into air, wounding several irregulars by wandering bullets who fired back, and the battle began. During the night, Albanian irregulars received reinforcements of 500 men. According to works of Montenegrin King Nicola I Petrović, Albanian irregulars fled as soon as Ottomans entered Ulcinj district, with public statements claiming that they did not surrender Ulcinj without a battle. The Albanians clashed with the Ottomans at the Kodra Kuqe, near the village of Klleeznes. The Albanians managed to defeat the first wave of Ottoman forces, but when reinforcements arrived, the Albanians were temporarily defeated and returned. The commander Isuf Sokali was wounded and died later that day. In 1880, the 23rd of November, the Ottomans continued to march in the city and surrendered the city to the Montenegrin army. The city had officially been handed over to Montenegro, and after a 30-month-long negotiation process, with European powers involved, the battle ended. Although Dervish Pasha tried to inspire population of Ulcinj to emigrate from Ulcinj to Ottoman Empire, nobody emigrated before Montenegrin army arrived because they already had experienced being Montenegrin citizens in period January 1878, February 1879. The population of Ulcinj came out on the streets to welcome Montenegrins taking control of the city, advancing 500 meters after retreating Ottoman forces. On the following day, Voivode Božo Petrović was greeted with acclamation of the whole population of the city. A delegation of notable citizens met with Voivode Božo Petrović, who instructed them to organize election for the city assembly and court, which they did, and elected the same people who held these positions in the first year of Montenegrin government over Ulcinj. A Montenegrin military unit of 200 Catholics from Ba was ordered to place Montenegrin flag on the top of Ulcinj fortress. Casualties. The Ottoman forces suffered certain casualties. The fight resulted in around 7,800 casualties, with a majority of elderly, women and children who died, and a territorial loss for the Albanians. Aftermath. The cession of Ulcinj to Montenegro caused additional animosity of Albanian population toward the Ottoman policy. After the border with Montenegro was agreed, all attention of Albanians was focused to the relations with Port. The Ottomans interned notable Albanian leaders from Shkodra who objected to decisions of the Ottoman government. In the spring of 1881, the Ottoman forces under Dervish Pasha undertook a military campaign and crushed the Prizren League without much resistance. Montenegrin newspapers mocked with lack of serious resistance of the League of Prizren, emphasizing that Ottoman Port was behind the whole this events, concluding that today's surrender of Ulcinj proves that all that so-called Albanian resistance and that terrible Albanian League with which Turkey operated and deceived the whole world was actually nothing. Mocking with the texts in media sympathetic to position of League who wrote about the tragic fall of Albanian lions, although the uprising and surrender were actually only one ridiculous comedy.